Welcome. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, welcome. Hopefully, y'all can hear me good. I was running a little bit behind this morning. Good morning. I will be streaming off of two TikTok and Facebook. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So y'all can hear me. Good morning. Good morning. This live will be about emergency funds. We are going to be talking about emergency funds this morning. I'm glad everyone is here. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to come into the room. Make sure you like the live. Make sure you share it. Good morning. Make sure you like it. Make sure you share. Heart the live. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. Thank you for liking the live. Make sure you come in and like the live. Good morning. Good morning. Like the live. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you so much. So I'm going to be talking about emergency funds. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Janine. I'm a budget coach. I am a single mom of three. On here, I talk about budgeting, saving your money, getting out of debt, and with all that, well, all of the things, personal finances with God in the center. So if that is something that you're into, make sure you hit the follow button up here. Make sure you follow me on Facebook. I'm Gracefully Simplified on all platforms. Today, I'm going to be talking about emergency funds. Good morning. Good morning, everybody in the room. I'm just going to give a few more minutes for people to come in the room. Good morning. Thank you for the live. Thank you so much. Good morning. We are going to be talking about emergency funds. If you're in the room, type in the chat, where are you from? Where are you from? Good morning. Good morning. I got a couple. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes and see if anybody else jump in the live. Bear with me because I'm new to live. I'm kind of new to this, but we going to keep showing up. Alabama. Okay. Alabama. Nice. So I guess my first question, we're going to be talking about emergency funds because that is so important. And I want to make sure that you have a pen and a paper because I'm going to be dropping some gems and I want you to write it down. If you have a chance to get a pen and a paper, because I am going to got my little notes here to be talking about some stuff that I want you to remember. You know what? Morning. I don't see nobody from here. Okay. Sorry, I got my little. So, good morning. Good morning. Let's see. All right. So I just. All right. So my first question would be, Do you have an emergency fund? You could put in the chat, yes or no. We're going to be talking about emergency funds and how important it is, especially in 2025. We need an emergency fund. We definitely do. And it's okay if you don't have one. I'm definitely going to be talking about tips and ways for you to start to build your emergency fund. But type in the chat if you have an emergency fund. No. Okay. And it's okay. Listen, over here, it's no shame, no guilt. If you don't have an emergency fund, that's okay. But I'm going to say in 2025, we're going to have to work on getting an emergency fund for sure. Because life is going to life, like everybody say, and getting an emergency fund is extremely important. Extremely important. And there are certain things that you could do. You know, you got to start somewhere. Good morning. Um, let's see. So I wanna. So I got a couple points. So sorry, y'all. I'm just like looking off to the side. I just really wanted to talk about joint. Okay. First, I wanted to say how important an emergency fund is. I believe in, trying to get out of debt. Like a lot of my videos, you'll see me talking about like trying to get out of debt, trying to live below your means, and an emergency fund is going to, I guess, give you a cushion between life. Like prime example, we all know you may get your car may go flat, something with your kids. So the emergency fund is going to help you at least and I think sometimes a lot of times, like especially when you starting, you may not you may not know how much you should save. But I think you should have some type of cushion. And I am going to talk later about like how much you should save and where you should start. But put in the chat what life I'm sorry, I'm trying to let me go back. I'm like my words. Bear with me. Hi, oh, good morning. Good morning, whoever came into the live. We're talking about emergency funds. I was talking about how important emergency funds is. Sorry, y'all. I'm like new. I'm a little nervous, but we're gonna get through this. So I was just talking about how important an emergency fund is, and that it's like basically your buffer against life. If something happened, if your car go flat, if your tire, if your tire goes flat, or you have a emergency in your house or something with your kids, having an emergency fund is extremely important. I wanted to say this quick Bible verse really quick. And it says Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. So I want us to be committed to trying to build an emergency fund because it's just so important. An emergency fund also will help, like, instead of you think about swiping, credit cards, the emergency fund will help with those unexpected costs. And then and honestly, it will give you a side of like relief. It will release a little bit of anxiety because when an unexpected bill or unexpected cost come in and you don't have no money, no savings, like you really be stressed out. Most people. I know I would be stressed out when I didn't have an emergency fund. So emergency fund can relieve a little bit of the stress, even if it's not covering the whole full amount of the expense. It will relieve some type of stress, and they give you options, like when, let's just say, you in a house and your heater goes out and it's $1,500 and you only have $1,000 saved. Well, at least you got 1,000, and you can find ways to maybe get the other 500. Good morning. Good morning. Make sure you heart the live. Make sure you share the live. I'm streaming on Facebook and YouTube. So I was just talking about emergency funds and how important it is to have it. Put in the chat if you have an emergency fund. Yes or no if you have it. But like I think a lot of people maybe don't know where to start when they're trying to build an emergency fund. Like if they already living paycheck to paycheck, then it's like, well, how can I save when I barely have any money now anyway? So there are certain things that you can do to build your emergency fund or start small. So put in the chat if you have an emergency fund. Put yes or no if you do. Good morning. Good morning. I'm talking about emergency funds. Um, so so I'm just talking about why it's important to have an emergency fund. Um, so let me see. So I want to talk about how much you should start to save for an emergency fund. I think it's like different phases. So phase one, if you don't have an emergency fund at all, you don't have no money saved, I think you should try to start with either $500 to $1,000. So so some people may be like, okay, so how can I save 500? A couple things that you can do to save, to start your emergency fund, because we all need an emergency fund, is automate your savings. So every time you get paid, automate it and send money. Like most jobs, you can send, like if you fill out a direct deposit form for your job, a lot of jobs will allow you to send money or split your paycheck into different accounts. I would suggest that you can go to your job, and it doesn't, like, even if you have a direct deposit and you want to add another account on there, you always can do that. I would suggest that you add another account at your job and send money directly to your savings account, so you don't even see it, you don't even miss it, and it's something automated. And you can start small with like $50. If that's the only thing extra that you have, automating the savings is just going to make it very easy, because then it's just already going to come out your check. And then you could just let that bill, you could send it to a checking account that you don't have a debit card to, so you won't spend it. So I would recommend to automate your savings. Also, if you don't have a high yield savings account, most people have like a regular savings account, make sure you're putting your emergency fund in a high yield savings account. A high yield savings account is an account with higher interest. That's why it's called high yield. It has a higher interest. I know the account that I keep my emergency fund is Capital One. There are plenty other banks out there that you can look, but make sure you're looking at their interest. I know that Ally Bank has good savings accounts. I know the interest rate was like maybe 4%, but now it may be like 3%. So you could look into that. So phase one, I would say try to save $500 to $1,000. Now, maybe if you have a little bit more margin in your budget and you have a little bit more room, the second phase that I would recommend you try to achieve is to have 1 month of your expenses in your savings account. 1 month of your total bills. So let's say it takes $5,000 to run your whole household for a month. God forbid if you lose your job or you get sick, you will at least have that cushion. But $5,000 sometimes is like really overwhelming. And I always tell people just to start small. Like if you don't have any of your like emergency fund at all, or maybe you're not good with saving at all, then start with 500, because at least you'll have a cushion. So put in the chat if you don't have an emergency fund, how much you want to start or how much you want to commit to saving for emergency fund. Put in the chat, you want to start off with 500, 1,000, what's your goals? I think it's very important to write it down and hold yourself accountable, or have other people hold you accountable in reference to building an emergency fund. Put in the chat how much you want to save for an emergency fund. Good morning. Good morning. I was just talking about emergency fund. I know for me, I started with make sure you heart the live, make sure you like it. I started with having $1,000 in my emergency fund, but I am building to have a month's worth of expenses in my emergency fund. I don't have it yet, but we working on it. So there's a scripture that I wanted to say, Luke 14:28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost? We need to estimate the cost. So it's just really, make sure you're tapping the live. It's really important to start small and build safety nets. Emergency fund is just basically a safety net. Another affirmation that I wanted to say is, every dollar I save is a seed I plant for my future peace. That's so true. Every dollar that I save is a seed I plant for my future peace. Having an emergency fund will bring you peace in the long run. It will give you options. It will allow you to, reduce the anxiety when it comes down to unexpected expenses. Everybody should have some type of emergency fund in 2025. And if you don't, start small. So what I also said, so you can automate your savings, which is one way to start to save for emergency fund, automate it. You also can sell things. They say the statistics say that most average American has at least $1,000 of unused items in their house. What can you save so you can get your emergency fund? Do you have shoes in your closet that you know you don't wear? I know for me, y'all, I'm not gonna lie, like, I wore a Louis bag, a very expensive Louis bag, and did not use it, and it was sitting in my closet. And I was working majority of the time, and I just had this expensive Louis bag sitting in my closet. And I end up selling it. Like, why? It's sitting in my closet and I didn't use it. So put in the chat if you have any unused items that you could sell to build your emergency fund. Anything that, most people have a lot of stuff that you don't use that's sitting in your house, and you could sell it and start your emergency fund. Put in the chat if you have any unused items in your emergency fund. Any unused items in your house. Good morning, whoever, people that just came to live. We're talking about emergency funds and how we can sell some unused items. It's very important to have an emergency fund. You could put in the chat if you have an emergency fund. Let me see what else. Also, I know a big thing too, if you are trying to, good morning. I'm talking about building an emergency fund. There's some people that just jumped on. I'm talking about building an emergency fund. So put in the chat if you have an emergency fund. Some people are just jumping on. And I was also talking about how most Americans have over $1,000 of unused items in their house. So do you have an emergency fund? If you do, yeah. Good morning. So I said you can automate your savings to start to save for an emergency fund. You also can sell some unused items, and you also can, most people, I don't really know people's schedule, but another way to try to build your emergency fund really fast is to make it a second job. Maybe do some Uber Eats, some DoorDash, and I think those type of side hustles are good for a certain purpose. I don't think it's just, you should be, if you're trying to pay off some debt, or if you're trying to build an emergency fund, picking up a side hustle is a great way to make sure that you have it. I think you just really got to be intentional. Like you really got to say, all right, like I'm going to, sell some things. I'm going to, start to pick up a side hustle and write it down. Write down your goals. It's so important to write down the goals. So let's say you say, you know what, I don't have an emergency fund and I'm going to start with $500. Then start with $500 and make sure that any extra money that you have out of your check is going to that goal. Another thing is to cut subscriptions. I don't know about y'all, but do you know how many subscriptions you have? Put in the chat if you know how many subscriptions you use, because most people would be surprised. Subscriptions is one of those sneaky costs that you don't never pay attention to that will be draining your bank account slowly. So put in the chat if you know how many subscriptions you have. Most people may say, I may have like 3 or 4 subscriptions. And when you actually track your expenses, you probably have like 10. So another way to save for an emergency fund is to cancel some subscriptions that you do not use. Make sure that you cancel some of those subscriptions. Let me see. Also, I would recommend just to find creative ways to save money. So again, I said you can automate the savings. You can try to sell things in your house that you don't use, or maybe pick up a side hustle. You can do that. Or just trying to find other creative ways to have an emergency fund. But it's so important, y'all, especially in 2025. We don't want to be going into more debt. We want to save our money and we want to live below our means. So having an emergency fund will give us those options. So one of the ways to save, to automate the saving. I also said, I'm sorry, I got my little notes here. You know what? Also, another way to save for emergency fund would be like visual aids. Like I have a debt tracker that's in my stand store, but also you may see people that have like savings jar, something that you can color in. So that may be a visual aid for you to be able to save for your emergency, something that will make it a little bit easier, or maybe to make it a little fun for you to save. But it's really important to have an emergency fund. Let me see. So put in, see, like your emergency. Thank you for liking it. Thank you. So tell me different ways that you want to save for the emergency fund. You can put in the chat any other ways that you could save for an emergency fund. Let me see. Like, thank you. I'm just looking at my little notes, y'all. Bear with me. I'm a little nervous. I'm figuring it to get a little bit better being on live, but I guess it takes some time because I'm still nervous. It's my second week of doing live, but I wanted to continuously show up nervous and all. People that may watch this on the replay. We're basically talking about an emergency fund. So again, so I already talked about 3 different ways for you to automate your savings. just really things for you to take away. If you don't have an emergency fund, start small, somewhere. Okay, you just got to start. Again, you can automate your savings when you get paid. You can ask your job to, you can split your paycheck up and send money to a different account. Um, and I would say make sure you put it into a high yield savings account. Two, I would say if you're trying to build your emergency fund, sell anything that you don't use. I said earlier for people that wasn't on here, I was saying that I had like bought a Louis bag that I did not use and I sold it. So most Americans have over 1,000 hours of unused items in their house. So if you have anything in your house that you can sell it so you can build your emergency fund. The third thing I said was get a side hustle. I know a lot of people probably have 9 to 5. Most people have 2, 3 jobs. So I would say get a side hustle just for your emergency fund. Like make sure that any extra money or any extra income that you have, make sure that you are putting into your emergency fund. And four would be make the savings funds have a little visual aid. Create a like maybe like a jar for you to put on your mirror or put on your wall, and every time you save $50, color it in. So then that way you like, okay, I'm closer to my goal, I'm almost there. That way it will build momentum and you'll push and it'll become closer to your goal. So I'm gonna open it up for any questions. Any one of the scripture verse I want to say is Proverbs 15:22. Plans fail for lack of counsel. With many advisors, they succeed. So that I think that we have to remember that. Listen, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have it all together. If you only can save $10, save $10. You have to start somewhere. I think that a lot of times people will be like, oh, I'm going to save when this. I'm going to save when I get here. I'm going to save when I finish this. And it's like that target is always going to be moving. Like you have to commit to trying to have a emergency fund. And also I would say too, if you want, a lot of people spend a lot of money eating out. Reduce that eating out budget. Cut back on that DoorDash. Cut back on those Wawa runs. And think, you know what? Instead of me eating out, this money could be going towards my emergency fund because we all need it, and we all got to start somewhere. And also, I would recommend to have somebody close to you or have somebody that's going to hold you accountable and that's going to check in and be like, hey, how's your savings going? Because I think we just so used to being in a world that we got to do this all by ourselves, but that's not how God ordained it. Like we need community. We need, like-minded people that's going to hold us accountable. So make sure you try to have people that's going to hold you accountable. Like, okay, I said that I'm going to try to save 500 and let me just check in with such and such, that's going to hold you accountable. But that's also, you got to give yourself grace too, as well. Cause it's hard out here. Life is hard and it can be very stressful. So again, the emergency fund is going to give you some peace. It's going to give you some options when emergency does come. So also I wanted to say, like, I have different tools that's in my Stan Store. It will be the link in my bio and also in the description. So I have like budget templates, debt payoff trackers for you to pay off some debt, for you to save some money. So check out the link in my bio. Make sure you follow, make sure you like. I'm streaming on Facebook and TikTok. I'm Gracefully Simplified on all platforms. Make sure you share the live. Make sure you like it. Any questions? I'm going to open it up to any questions you have. If you have any questions, I'm also going to be doing one-on-one coaching. So if you go to the link in my bio, you can click to schedule a one-on-one coaching with me, and we can talk about your budget, how to get out of debt, what's your personal goals. Maybe you need help saving for emergency fund. Maybe you just need help building a budget. You can go into my Steam store and schedule a free consultation. It's no cost. We can chat and see how automatic it does. I got a comment saying automatic taken out of your check helps. It does. To automate your savings and taking it out of your check definitely helps. And it just makes it easier. It will also just you'll start to save very fast because you don't even see it because it comes right out of your check. So the emergency fund will be very easy for you to build because you don't even see that money. So when your check comes, you already send it to savings. So creating those automatic habits is a great way to boost your emergency fund. And again, like I said, it will reduce some stress and anxiety, okay? Especially like back to school costs is here. Our kids are going back to school. So let's say your checks, were kind of tight in August. But you know what I was about to say? You could use your emergency fund for maybe back to school, but I wouldn't recommend you use emergency fund for back to school. I'll only recommend you use emergency fund for an emergency. Back to school is a cost that you knew was coming. So I wouldn't recommend you do that. I would just recommend you budget and buy the back to school stuff from your budget. So if you need help budgeting, again, links will be in the bio. Any other questions about emergency funds and how we can build them? Let me see. So I just wanted to jump on here really quick and just really talk about, hopefully whoever's watching on the replay, would you say 401k is an emergency fund? No, I would not say 401k is an emergency fund. No. 401k is a whole nother different topic. That's your investments. You want to keep that money in there as long as possible because you're investing it. 401k, I would specifically be using that for retirement, and I would not keep the money in there at all. And there's stipulations to that. So no, I wouldn't. I would have a high yield savings account, and your 401k is something totally different. That's a whole nother different discussion. No, I wouldn't keep it in there. I would keep it in a high yield savings account, especially if you're closer to retirement. You need a high yield savings account. So you know what? I wanted to say this scripture, this last scripture verse before I log off, because I just wanted to make this quick and a quick 30-minute budget with me, or different. Every Saturday I'm going to be going live, and it'll just be different topics. Today was about emergency fund. Last week was about, hey, what did I talk about last week? Oh, I talked about my budget template. Listen, I talked about my budget template last week. So if you're on TikTok, if you go to my YouTube, check out my budget template live. It's on my my page. Bear with me. I probably got a lot of ums in there, a lot of ums in here. It's my second week of going live, and it's no joke. It's not easy. I feel like all of the knowledge, your brain just goes blank when you hit go live. So bear with me. How much do you normally have to put in a high yield savings account when you open one? I don't think there's a limit. I'm pretty sure there's not a limit. I know I have Capital One, and there's not a limit. Some high yield savings account may have like a starting balance of, but for you just to open it up, you may have to put, you know how you just open up a regular checking account? You may have to put like $10 or whatever. Now, you have to be careful of like those CDs where you have to have a certain amount to open that out. No, the high yield savings is not. Most banks, I'm pretty sure it's not, because I'm thinking about Capital One. I didn't have to have a certain amount to open the account. So you can start small, right? Like you can just automate, you can go to your job and try to send $50 every time you get paid, and then don't touch it. I would recommend, if you have a high yield savings account, don't have a debit card attached to it, because this is your savings. You don't even want to think about it. You don't want to even have access to it, especially if you're like new to savings and savings is maybe hard for you. Because I know when I first started, savings was very hard for me. It wasn't something that like I just automatically did well. Some people are good savers and some people are spenders, and I'm definitely a spender. So I had to put barriers in place to help me save. And automating your automating your savings is a great barrier to put in place, just to make it a little bit easier, because it's almost like the same thing. Like, y'all, if you let's say you start at the gym, it's going to be hard the first week you starting to exercise, creating a new habit. It's hard at first. It's not easy. Your body going to be sore. You're not going to feel like going to the gym. It's the same thing with savings. It's something new to you, right? So it's not going to be easy. It's unfamiliar. It's going to seem really hard at first until you build that muscle. And when you build that muscle, then you just going to save, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's easy. I don't even think about it. But that first couple times, the first couple, um, trying to intentionally save, it may be hard at first. But I think the biggest thing that we have to do is be intentional, right? Like, all right, let me start to save for emergency. And like I said before, I don't know if y'all was on here, but I said first, the phase one is $500 to $1,000. If you should start small. I think just trying to say, all right, I'm gonna save 2,500 by the end of the year, and you never saved before. I think that's just a high number. Start small. Let's say that, okay, it's August. Maybe a goal would be save $500 by December. Because again, if most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, so it has to be realistic with your budget. So if your budget is really tight, you don't really have a lot of extra money after you pay all your bills, then start small. That $25 can build over time. And by the end of the year, you may have 500 to 1,000. So I would say phase one would be, if you never saved before, save 500 to 1,000. Phase two would be a month of your bills in your account. So a whole month. So most people, to run their household, the average maybe 5,000. So I would recommend 5,000 or whatever. Maybe some people, to run their household, maybe 7,000. It really just depends. I would recommend you try to work up towards saving 1 month of savings, because God forbid you ever get sick. God forbid you have to take off. Your kids get sick. You lose your job. God forbid, because a lot of people are being laid off. At least you have 1 month to be able to look for another job. You have a little bit of a cushion. So at least, but you got to start somewhere. Again, you got to start somewhere and be intentional. Have people hold you accountable as well. Check in. Have a safe, person that you can trust, that will hold you accountable. Yes. So, any other questions? And again, I just wanted to make sure that I just came on here. Every Saturday, I will be doing some type of budget with me, but different topics. So if you start small, don't you have to put it in a regular savings account to avoid fees? No, you wouldn't have to put. Thanks. These are great tips. Thanks. No, you don't have to start. If you start small, you still could put it in a high yield savings account. No, I wouldn't recommend for you to put it into a regular savings. No, because their interest rates on a regular savings is like 0%, and you're not even gonna gain no type of interest at all. Good morning. Good morning. You late. Good morning. Um, no, I wouldn't. I will put it in the high yield savings account for sure. I wouldn't I wouldn't put it in a regular savings, because as the money builds and as you put more money into the account, you're going to gain interest, right? And that's what a lot of people fail to realize. You gain you gain compound interest. So you want your money to be working for you, because eventually, right, the more money you have in the account, the more interest you gain. And you don't even, so a lot of people be like, oh, that's, passive income or whatever. Shoot, your money's just sitting in a high yield savings account, and every month you'll see it, and it'll be like $6, $7. That's the interest you gain for your money just sitting there. You ain't do not, even though it's small, $6, you can buy yourself a cup of coffee, or you could just keep saving that interest, and that's how your money will build anyway. Which institution has the highest interest? Um, I don't know which institution has the highest interest. I would say I currently use Capital One for my high yield savings account. I think their interest is at 4%, or maybe a little bit lower, maybe like 3%. A couple banks I would recommend, Ally Bank is another one. I would say also too, like the online banks have tend to have higher interest than like the banks that you can actually go to, because I guess their overhead is cheaper because it's an online bank and they don't have to pay for a building. So these are great tips. Thank you. But if you don't have a certain amount, do they charge you a fee? No. No, they don't. Mm-mm. Because when I started saving my emergency fund for Capital One, they didn't charge me a fee. And a lot of banks, because if it's an online bank, they don't have an overhead. But again, you could quote me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I didn't have a fee when I started saving for the high yield savings. I would say look into it, but I'm pretty sure they don't have a fee. So all you have to do is just open the account. They may say like, recommend you do a direct deposit into the account or something like that, but I wouldn't say they have a fee for it. Um, yeah, it was interesting they had the highest. Any other questions? We talking about emergency fund. People that just came into the room. We're talking about emergency funds and how to start small. First phase would be $500 to $1,000 if you never really saved before, and then the second phase I will recommend is you try to have 1 month of your bills in your emergency fund. And I also talked about different ways that you can save for your emergency fund. You can automate your savings and send your money directly to a different account when you get paid. You can sell some items that you do not use in your house. Most American has over $1,000 of unused items in your house. You can get a side hustle, DoorDash or Uber, to get your emergency fund, or you can create some type of visual aids for emergency. Any other questions? I wanted to make this quick and short. Well, I mean, short. Um, so every Saturday I will be on here live, just giving different budgeting tips. Last week was again about my budget template. If you're interested in the budget template, I don't have a car, so what are some other side hustles? What are some other side hustles that you could do? Virtual assistant is one. You could be a virtual assistant. You can, it's a lot of remote jobs that you can do. Whatever side hustles. It really just depends on what field you're in. to maximize your skills. Like prime example, if you were a teacher, I would tell you that you can tutor on the side to make good money. I don't have a computer currently. So what great side hustles you could do without a computer? Mm, um, when do you, when do you use your emergency fund? Give some examples. Oh, okay. Great. All right, so two different questions. I'm going to answer this first one. I don't have a computer currently, and you asking me about different side hustles. I would say what are you good at? Like I don't know what field you're in, because if you can't Uber, I would say virtual assistants is one. Writing, you can. Oh, well, you don't have a computer, so that okay. The virtual assistant. Um, you gotta be creative. I don't. I'm trying to think. What else could you do? If you don't have a computer and you don't have a car? Well, if you live in a type of neighborhood, then you could do something with your hands. Maybe you can clean houses. Maybe you can go around and mow lawns. Maybe you can do something physical. Maybe you can bake something if you're good with cooking and tell your family and friends, hey, I'm cooking, I'm selling platters for $20. Something that you're interested. I don't know if you like to cook or anything like that, but something that you like. I can definitely cook. Okay, so maybe you can cook something and sell it and put the word out there, because word of mouth is the highest form of marketing. So you could tell your friend that's going to tell a friend that's going to tell a friend that's going to tell a friend. Okay, so that's one of the ways that you can do. A question on Facebook is, when do you use your emergency fund? Give some examples. Very good question. When should we use our emergency fund? We should use our emergency fund when it's an emergency and not a planned expense. So I would say your car, a car flat, like your tire just got flat in your car. That's an emergency. That's nothing that you prepare for. Let's say your heater stopped working in your house. That's an emergency fund. I would use my emergency fund for that. I wouldn't use my emergency fund for um what wouldn't I use it for? Um let's see. I wouldn't use it for like back to school costs. Like I wouldn't use it for that. Something that you already know is coming. And also sinking funds. Like if you know, like I wouldn't use my emergency fund. Like we know Christmas is coming up and that never changes. I wouldn't use that for that. I would create a sinking funds for that. Um, I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, let's say you have to go to the hospital and you gotta pay a copay or a huge. I probably wouldn't use my emergency fund for that, because most of the time, if you gotta go to the hospital, you should have a medical sinking fund. So I wouldn't use it for that. What else do I use my emergency fund for? I would use my emergency fund if um now my mind is drawing a blank, y'all. I'm just trying to think about what I would use it for. Like big things that happen to a lot of people. Like I wouldn't use my emergency fund for like a car note or anything like that. Insurance, I would all of those costs are something that you kind of know. It has to be something that you do not expect. Like it just come from left field. You was not expecting this at all. Broken refrigerator or stove. There we go. Yes. Broken refrigerator or stove. Yes, I would use it for. But I'm trying to think about like other household items that you can use. I mean, that would be an emergency. I don't know. Maybe like, okay, you have a Capital One with or without a card, because if we need to get the funds without a card, I have a Capital One. I do have the card, but I will recommend two things. Yes, I know that you need the card if you need it, but I would probably, not probably, how would you get the funds without a card is what I'm saying. Okay. So when you first open the savings account, yes, you're going to have a card, but I would recommend you like keep the card in the house because you want to create barriers for yourself that's going to make it harder for you just to have access to spend that money. So leave the card at your house. Do not put it in your wallet. You don't want it to be easy for you just to like you created a cushion of $500 and you want to go out somewhere and you want to shop and you like, you know what, I could just transfer $100 to my account and I could just buy this item. That's not what you want to do. You want to try to create some barriers and make it harder for yourself to just have access to that money, because again, this is only for emergencies. Another thing that I just thought of that you can use it for if you lose your job. Unfortunately, a lot of people are getting laid off. So the emergency fund is for that. And a lot of people have been out of work for months that's been living off of their emergency fund. So there you go. Or if you out of work, okay, if you out of work, if you because most people, let's say you on disability for like you on FMLA for a month or whatever, and you only getting 60% of your income. That's when the emergency fund comes in. So only for unexpected things, not the day to day, not the, oh, okay, I don't have no more money in my account. Sorry, y'all. Not for like, oh, I don't have no more money in my account and I got this white thing on my. Sorry, y'all. I don't be looking crazy on this video. Not to have not to be dipping into that money because you spent over your budget or you don't have no money in your account. So again, we just want to create some barriers and we just wanted to make it a little harder for you to access the money. Yeah, so any other questions about an emergency fund? I'm going to be doing prayer tomorrow for like our finances for our kids at 6 p.m. So I will be live tomorrow as well. So Saturdays will be about like budgeting, and then Sundays will be about prayer, right? We just praying over our week. We praying that, God give us strength to build an emergency fund, give us strength to hold ourselves accountable. Tell the difference. I have a question that comment say, tell the difference between an emergency fund and a buffer in your account. Great question. So the comment was, tell the difference between emergency fund and a buffer. So emergency fund, again, is for emergencies, right? It's the unexpected cost. It's something we did not expect, but we have to buy or we have to spend. A buffer now, which is two totally different things. I would recommend, if you can, start with at least $100 to $250 for a buffer in your checking account. Now, again, this buffer is just for when you're having all your bills come out of your account. This is going to prevent overdraft fees. Prime example, my buffer in my checking account is $500. So either way, if you are tracking your bills for the month, and let's say you don't get paid till Friday and the bill come out on Tuesday, you still have a cushion and a buffer in your checking account that may cover the cost. But for real, if you're tracking your expenses and you doing, if you are splitting your bills and paychecks, then that shouldn't happen. But if you don't, I would recommend that the buffer is something different than your emergency fund. And again, it's just for that. It's just a buffer so you don't have overdraft fees. I'm gonna tell y'all, there was a time where I was living paycheck to paycheck and I was a overdraft queen. Okay. Like, listen, most people, right? People that know, they know. I used to be like, listen, I know that I could overdraft my account up to $500 and the bank would cover it, but I'm getting all of these crazy fees. Now, I'm not saying I recommend people do that, but what I'm saying is life be lifing, okay? And it's hard out here. And I used to just be like, well, you know what? I can swipe my card for $200 and buy some groceries or buy something, and then I just get an overdraft fee. And I was in that constant cycle of my account was negative $200-300, and then when I got paid, it would just take the money out of my account. So now my checks is lower than what it used to be because I didn't overdraft it. And you just constantly are in that cycle of like, all right, well, I mean, I don't have no more money, but I need to make it to next week. So I'm just going to swipe my credit card. And the biggest thing that I had to learn is I was living above my means, right? I had to cut out some expenses. I had to cut out eating out. That's why you really got to get on a budget. You got to know your numbers, because that constant cycle of overdrafting, not having no money in your account, it's like the rat wheel. Like you just going to keep doing it. So to have a buffer in your account, start small. One more, if we dip in the fund, do you suggest putting exactly what we took out back in? Yes. So I don't know what fund you're talking about, but if you dip into your emergency fund, do you suggest putting the money back? Yes. Put the money back ASAP, as soon as you can. Put the money back. Because again, do you recommend paying bills on a 2-week basis? Like my rent is $1,800 a month, but I started paying bi-weekly. Yes. This is called the split paycheck method. Absolutely. And if you don't know, my budget template is the link is in my bio. I have a template where literally every time you get paid, you put your numbers in there. So prime example, my mortgage is high. Okay. I split it. So I get paid every week. So what I do is I take the total cost of my mortgage and I split it into 4. So instead of me paying $3,000, right, from one check, I split it and I divide that by 4. So I recommend you do that for all your bills, your cell phone, all of that. It's called the split paycheck method. And it will allow you to have more margin in your paychecks. It will allow you to not be taking such huge amounts out of your pay. And especially if you get paid every 2 weeks. If you get paid every 2 weeks and you got to pay a full amount for a bill, you got to wait to those next 2 weeks till you get paid. And again, we back to the overdrafting your account, not having any savings. So it's like we got to get out of that cycle. So splitting your bills into pay cycles is the game changer. And I'm telling you, I did it and I was like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this before? I don't know why I didn't do this before, but yeah, split it. And I split everything, even the small bills, y'all, like, the water bill, maybe $50. I'll split it into 25 and 25 and make sure that it's getting paid on time. So yeah, you're welcome. Make sure that you are splitting your bills. Say someone. Yeah. Any other questions? Make sure you get the budget template in my Stand Store. The link is in my bio. Tosh. Any other questions on here before I just jump off? Again, I just wanted to talk about emergency funds and how important it is to have in 2025. Because guess what? Life is one of life, y'all, whether we like it or not. And we need to be more prepared either way. No. We need to be prepared. Make sure you like the live. Make sure you share it on it. You're welcome. On it. Make sure you share the live. Make sure you like it. Hopefully you gain in, some tips on here for the replay. Hopefully you learned some things. I answered some great questions. You can catch the replay on Facebook and also YouTube, TikTok. If you're not following me on YouTube, I'm Gracefully Simplified on all platforms. You can get the budget template that I talked about. I also have a small tutorial on my YouTube where I teach you how to use the budget template. So that will be in my Seeing store. I also do one-on-one coaching. You could book a call with me. And again, all of these links will be in the description. It will also be in my bio on TikTok. So thank you everybody that joined it, that asked me questions, that was being interactive. I truly appreciate you guys more than you know. And remember, budget with faith and prosper with grace.